Hello, everyone. I am joined by World Cruiserweight Champion, British Light Heavyweight Champion, and now professional boxing coach Enzo Maccarineli. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
I've just run upstairs. I'm out of breath. So most interviews that I see online are just like asking about like your career and stuff, and there's a few stuff I want to touch on, certain fights and stuff. Um, but I wanted to touch more in detail on things that people could possibly learn from. Um, and from sparring you, I remember sparring you at the back end of your career, and one thing you had, which is a natural thing, I think, which I'm about to ask you on, was your punch power. Do you think that is natural, or was that a thing you worked on over time? Was you always a puncher, or was it a technical thing you worked on to gain, or what would you say?
Um, to be honest, I don't know. I've always been able to punch from a young age. I had my first knockout at the age of 12. I knocked a kid out cold at the age of 12. And knocked my first man out when I was 15. Professionals come to the sparring, so I knocked him out. So I always had a bit of power. But it's strange because my dad run the club, and literally every single boy in the club could punch. So I
Yeah.
don't know which way he trained the boys, but we were all punchers, and I sort of carried that through with my boys. It seems like my youngsters and the amateurs, they've got the best knockout records on the circuit. They all seem to be able to punch. So I don't know whether it's from the aggression side of things where my dad taught me to commit the shots. You know, because there's a lot of fighters, they throw a lot of pitter patter shots, they throw a lot of feints, a lot of tempting type shots. But with my dad, it was all about aggression. And if you're going to throw, you throw with commitment.
Yeah.
But I do think you're either born naturally punching hard. It is ways to improve, but it's like I know a couple of boys close to me as well that when they punch, they're solid punchers.
Yeah.
But you can see they wind up, they load up, they put everything into it. When I've seen the punch and when I seen the knock people out, it was just like a little arm movement, a little twist of the shoulder. So it was. I think it's a bit of both, to be honest, Dave. I think I've always been able to punch, but I
Yeah.
think that aggression my dad put in me to commit to a shot certainly helped as well. Like,
So, what advice would you give to someone who isn't necessarily a puncher? Or and what drills would you use, like you say, to try and get a little bit more power out of somebody? What would you do in the gym with the lads in order to say, look, we need to put a bit more power in your shots?
it's basically that technique of gripping the floor with your shoes. There's a lot of boys they throw shots. Their back leg comes off the floor, their front leg comes off the floor. Grip your put your grip the canvas or grip the floor with your shoes. Rotation in the hips. Even from the left hook, what I found is if you put power in the right hand, the left hook will be harder as well because you've got that rotation. So the boys do a lot of 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off interval training, but it's where I call out certain shots, whether it be a 1-2, 1-2 left hook, 1-2 left hook, right hand.
Yeah.
I'm concentrating on all of them, committing, twisting their hips, twisting their body, and having full rotation in their shots. And you just over time, you just develop it.
So, do you think I think a big part of being a big puncher, like you said a little while ago, is commitment to the punch. Uh,
100%.
Yeah. Because I'm not the biggest puncher in the world. So the first point on that is I've never been one to really commit. I'm defensive minded.
Mm.
So commitment is a part of it. But also for me, not being a big puncher, I found to have success, I could hit people in the body not as a big puncher and you could break them in half. You were a
Mm.
fantastic body puncher and a big puncher. Was the body punching that you was doing, do you feel you was hitting people to the body through force, or was that something you worked on a lot as well, the body
Oh,
punching?
body punching was. I literally grew up watching the Mexicans. I watched Chavez, Barrera. I went on the Barrera, Marquez, and it's a strange one with the headshots. You put the force. Yes, I could punch, and yes, when I land the body shot, it's a bit of power in it. But it was always a lot of placement. It's more a body punch for me. A body punch is more placement because, like you know yourself, you don't get an opportunity to wind up and land the body shot. It's got to be done instinctively. So it's more so um, timing. I dropped. I won't mention no names. I'll tell you after. But I dropped the heavyweight back in my day. He was a British champion at the time. It was just one shot I hit him with, left out of the body. He crumbled. But it was basically because I drew the right hand off him. I slipped outside the right hand, and then he's overexposed his rib to me. So it was all about a body shot is all about placement. I've seen you throw a lot of good body shots, and like you said, you are a good puncher, but you don't allow yourself to be a puncher, because if you allow yourself to be a puncher, it would take away your game of movement.
Yeah.
Which is what I found when we sparred, how defensively good you were, how good you moved. If you started standing your ground, it takes away what you're actually good at. So but a body shot is that placement.
With the body punching, like what kind of drills did you do with that? Was that just a natural thing, or was it on the bag, the pads, or was it just?
Yeah, it was pads. It was pads. It was pads. It was bags. It was sparring. It was just sparring. It was just that. One thing with my dad, and I do with my boys, I never grab. I never hold on. I never have my boys have their hands outside, hands inside all the time. So it was basically the quick. As soon as you go head to head, as soon as you come into contact with someone, then's the perfect opportunity to throw that shot.
Yeah.
So you literally touch, you go. So it was all about that timing, that speed of timing.
Where would you place your hands on the inside then? If you was coming, would you have them there ready to punch straight away, as opposed
to pretty much like that. Like your Mexicans, who hands up nice and tight, you head to head. When you head to head, everyone knew I could throw a left up the body, so I had to develop ways of throwing a body shot. So it'd be an uppercut first, then drop round the side, or it'd be tap to the head with the left, then the side, or it would be tap the body, tap the head, then go back underneath. It was always ways. I could never catch you. I would never catch you with just a single shot. It was always a little disguise first.
So with your reputation of punching the amateurs, you turned pro. I did my research. I think your first 14 fights, you stopped 11 of them before you stepped into 10 and 12 rounders. Do you have any regrets looking back, even though when you went into 10 and 12 rounders, most of them got stopped as well? Do you wish you'd have done more rounds, or was that not really in you?
No, I don't. To be honest, it was a strange one, because obviously you sparred me, Dave, and I'm not what people see when I spar to when I fight.
Yeah.
I move a bit, and obviously you caught me at the back end of it. But when I sparred, I sparred one of the best boxers Britain's ever had on numerous occasions, Calzaghe. And I used to box with him. I could box with the best of them. But something happened to me on fight night where I had to go out and knock people out, and I done it. I turned senior at 17. I knocked. I think I had 7 fights, 7 wins, 6 first round knockouts. I boxed a boy 10.5 stone heavier than me, Darren Morgan, the beast. I knocked him out first round. So it was just something come over me that when I got in that ring, I had to entertain. I like to entertain people. I knew I could knock people out. Got me in trouble a few times, but it actually made me what I was.
So on that, so you've suffered a loss in your 4th fight, a stoppage defeat to Lee Swaby. Lee Swaby was actually a pretty good fighter, though, wasn't he? I remember.
And that's the thing. When I was turned pro, everyone jumped on a bandwagon. So I was knocking everyone out. And looking back, I was 18 years of age. I was in a former world champion kickboxer, 26 or 27, I think he was at the time. And I beat him up. I beat him up for 3 rounds. And I just gassed. I was in a club the night before. I wasn't drinking, but I was out. I wasn't living the life. But again, that was probably too soon for me to fight someone like that as an 18-year-old kid with limited senior experience as well. But it taught me a lot.
Did it diminish your confidence at all? When you were
not at all, mate. Not at all. I just knew where I wanted to go. But what it did do, it made me knuckle down.
Yeah.
It made me knuckle down. I always said to myself, I'd never get out of breath in a fight again, and I never will.
So at that point, was you still, because obviously you're a fitness fanatic now, and I always through all your career. So at that time, was you a bit of a miss, or just not living the life, doing it in the gym, living it outside?
Yeah, I was still training. I was still training hard. I was still doing a run, still doing a bag work. I was always doing the sparring. But yeah, I wasn't living the life. I was like I said, I was out the night before. I wasn't drinking. But
Yeah.
for me, I was thinking that I'm not drinking. It's all right. I'm gonna be stuck in the house, and I was just doing things wrong. So from that moment, if I had a fight, you wouldn't catch me anywhere near town or anywhere for about 7, 8 weeks before. Like,
Yeah. So how much of your career was with your dad as your trainer, and how much was Enzo Calzaghe? Was your amateur coach your dad and your pro coach Calzaghe, or
no, my dad was my coach all my life as an amateur. He's the only one I boxed for as an amateur. I was starting to make waves in the amateur scene when I turned professional. I boxed a boy who lost a 26-year-old who lost in the ABA finals. I can't remember his name. I was my first fight as a senior. I knocked him cold first round. People started jumping on the bandwagon. I got offered £1,500 to join a gym which was affiliated with £1,500 a month for a gym affiliated with the ABAs, give me a chance to go to the Commonwealth Games. But obviously I wouldn't leave my dad.
yeah,
Um, then I turned pro with Nicky Piper's. I was sparring Nicky Piper at 16. He reckons he got the better of me. We both know exactly what happened though, so I had the better of him. So I turned pro with his trainer Charlie, and I come to a point where I realised I wasn't learning nothing. I was on my own. I had no sparring. I had to go around places and sparring. I needed some sort of camp and team spirit, so to speak. And then I joined Enzo's.
so if so, you started out with your dad, and like you say, he had that mentality of you want to knock everybody out. Do you feel yourself at 12 when you started boxing, if you went to a different coach, different mindset, you'd have been a different fighter, or would you've always been the same? Or how much
I, I,
input do you think that coach put in that fighter?
Dave, Dave, to be honest, I don't know. I think it was I just won the British title, so I was 13, no, 12, I was 13. I had the first show back at Boston International. I just won an ABA, first fight back. And I boxed this kid who had 30 odd fights. I only had about 9 fights. And I boxed his head off. I absolutely boxed his head off. I was slick. I was had my hands down. I barely wasted a punch. But the crowd booed.
Mm.
They didn't like it. I got brought up in a time when there was labour clubs with the smoke everywhere. They wanted to see violence. And they booed. And from that moment on, I thought to myself, I'm never going to let someone boo me again.
Yeah,
So I think that was my mindset. I think that changed me more than my dad, more than anything else. My dad has some lovely boxes in the gym, but I
yeah.
think that more than anything else switched my mindset where people are coming to watch me. I want them to go home happy.
So when you start working with Enzo Calzaghe, I guess you're all excitement. What does he say? And more of an experienced pro coach, obviously with his son. What does he say about your way of doing things? Does he just leave you to get on with it? Does he use experience say just do your thing, or
He, he liked it. He liked it. He was an aggressive fighter as well. Joe had to modify his style because of his bad hands, but he was very aggressive as well. And he liked the sharp pace. He liked the fast. He liked the fitness. So it was like many a time I boxed. He actually made me do 8 rounds on the pads before I went in the ring. And I don't mean pet the pat. I mean full on eight
on fight
rounds
night? Not on fight night.
on fight now. I boxed Wayne Braithwaite at the time, the hardest puncher in world boxing, or one of them. And he made me do 8 rounds on the pads before I got in the ring, and I done 12 rounds standing on my head.
What, and you found that easy? Yeah.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say easy, but I done it. I done it quite comfortably. I won out the breath, and I
Well,
set a good pace as well.
so what was the training like? Obviously with Joe, Gavin Reese, I think was there at the time. What
It
was
was
it?
me, Gavin, Bradley Price, Nathan Cleverly, Joe, Kerry Hope. It was bonkers, mate. It was like we'd only train once a day, but it was like 3 or 4 hours training session. You go for a 6 mile run up a hill, come back. Me and Joe would jump straight in. We do 12 round sparring. Then I would go on the bags for 6. He would go on the pads for 6. Then we'd swap over. Then we'd go out on the field, do some sprint work. And I'll always remember the first time I went to Enzo's. My brother phoned me on the way home. He said, "How was it?" I said, "Oh, it was easy enough," because he had a reputation of being a fucking psycho, basically. So I said it was easy enough. He must have been having testing the waters. So next day, my brother phoned me. I had to pull the car over to talk to him. I was on the lay-by. I was fucking wrecked. But you built a tolerance, and I don't know. I was just supremely fit. If me and Joe used to spar, we used to pretty much throw 100 punches a round in a sparring session. And just flat out all the time. Then you go on the pads, you'd be punching 200 punches around. It doesn't work for everyone. It doesn't work for me. I like that. I like the aggressiveness. I like the fast pace. And me as a coach now, that's what I've got to try not to get into. I
Yeah.
don't want to teach all my boys me. I don't want them to be me. They can all throw body shots. I do taste that. They're all aggressive. But I got a couple of kids. They box with their hands down. I'd never do it in a million years. But in a gym, I would.
Yeah.
But I've got to let them be themselves, because I believe a bad coach would be someone who's making a boy fight like them or fight the way they want to fight. So all my boys box different. My two boys, I got my two boys boxing 114, 116, both massive punchers, But one's carbon copy of me, come forward, look for the left out of the body. The other one's a 6'5" southpaw, slick.
Yeah.
So it's, they've got to be who they are.
Do you look back at them Enzo Calzaghe training methods of a 6 mile run, 12 round spar, 6 pad, 6 bag, and just because for me, listening to that, I'm like, I've never heard nothing like that before. I'd go in the gym, do my lines at the Ingle gym, body spar, do my blows. I'd be home in an hour and a half. Do you look back and think, was I doing it right? Could I have been better, or did that just work for you? Or
I don't know, mate. I don't know. I think as I've got older, I realised rest and recovery is a big part, but it seemed to work. It seemed to work for Joe. He'd train us right the way up until the fight. I remember when I boxed my world title against Dominguez, 2 days before, he had me doing sprints and burpees outside. If you watch me closely, I struggled getting in the ring on the night. I couldn't. My legs were so fucked. I couldn't get up the steps. But I went at a flat out pace, and I had plenty left in the tank.
it's crazy for me to hear that. I've never heard that kind of training before. Them kind of methods. I've never really heard that before.
Oh, mate, it was bonkers, but it worked. It worked.
So would you
But
do a lot
then,
of sparring then? Would it be a lot of the training be a lot of sparring? Then would it be you and Joe, you and Nathan, or would be others involved as well?
yes, it was. And to be honest, that's what everyone. Enzo obviously had played a big part, but what brought me on was sparring Joe.
Yeah.
I never at that time. I never, and not many years after, I never had anyone to compete with me in sparring. And that's not blowing my own trumpet.
Yeah.
I just never had someone really, really compete with me in training. And I'm talking heavyweights. I'm talking about in my prime now.
Yeah.
But even out in my prime, I was knocking out British champions in the gym, sparring, light heavies, cruisers. I just never had anything. But Joe, I had to be on my toes constantly.
So
Literally.
is Joe Calzaghe going off subject then? Is Joe Calzaghe the best fighter you've ever shared a ring with?
100%, mate. His footwork was phenomenal. His footwork, his attributes. I used to sit down, and nothing, not a lot puts me in awe. But after I finished training, if he was still on the pads, I'd sit and watch him. And I wouldn't watch much of him. I just sit there in amazement how fast he was, how thin he was. So for me to go in there and compete with speed and compete with everything else, and Joe was mad because when we sparred, even though I was a cruiserweight, he was a super middleweight. When we sparred, he was heavier than me.
Yeah.
I was one of them boys that I was stuck in the weights. I was too. I know I done well at cruiser, but I was coming about 13.10, 13.11. The cruiserweight limit is 14.4. But then getting back down to 12 stone 7 then was a bit of a push. I was one of them who was stuck in the middle of the weights because I was so tall. Like.
So with your nutrition, that's the next thing I want to go on to, because you boxed at cruiserweight. That was where you obviously the bulk of your career was. You won your world title. You boxed at light heavy. What was your nutrition like? Obviously, with the training you was doing leads me to believe that the nutrition was that Enzo, was he in charge of that, or did you do that yourself?
Oh, mate, and I'm not being funny. I'm not speaking bad, Enzo. He knew nothing about nutrition.
Yeah.
Yeah, at that time, none of us did. The only time I really started looking into nutrition was when I had to go down to light heavy because I knew I had to do it properly. So I started messing with keto and paleo, and I got to a fine line of what I needed, the carbs I needed, and when I done light heavyweight, the week of the fight, I was still eating 3 meals a day, the week of the weigh-in, and I dropped around 10, 12 pounds, but I was eating 3 meals a day, drinking 6 litres of water. I just locked into it specifically as a cruiserweight. I could pretty much eat anything I wanted. It was always a big joke. You go to the big shows, go to Frank Warren, go to the big shows, morning of the way in, go down for breakfast. Obviously, all the boys couldn't eat, couldn't drink, they were starving. I'd be there tucking into a breakfast because I was about 8, 9 pounds underweight.
That's
So
mad
it was
because
it was always a laugh. But on fight night then, I was fighting boys stone and a half, nearly 2 stone heavier than me.
one of the questions I had written down, which is funny now you said this, was how come you never box at heavyweight? Because when I sparred you, uh, you're big. I would have said you was a big cruiserweight, like, and you was physically strong enough to compete. I'm a strong. I'm not a world class heavyweight, but a physically strong one. I thought he was physically strong enough to compete at heavyweight. So one of my questions was, how come you never box at heavyweight? But now you said that, I can understand.
It was, I think, the heaviest I ever got was about 14.6. Um, to be honest, Dave, even though it was the back end of my career, you probably caused me more trouble than many heavyweights I sparred.
Yeah,
Just with your movement and things like that. Because I think you had that mindset. You were a boxer. You're defensive. You didn't want to get caught,
yeah,
so you box that way. When I used to go away sparring, and again, I'll talk to you off camera, but I won't mention their names. The 3 or 4 current British heavyweight champions I sparred at the time while I was a small cruiserweight, they all went for me. They all
yeah,
tried to bully me. They all tried to think because they 4 or 5 stone heavier than me, they'd be able to bully me and outmuscle me. And they all found the same thing. Not one of them could put me on the back foot.
yeah,
Not one of them could move me, even in a clinch. Not one of them could move me. So I was always tempted. But then when you think about it, I'd have had to. I possibly could do it now
yeah,
with what I know, how to put weight on and do that. Because I probably punched hard, just as hard as many heavyweights.
yeah.
I'm probably just as strong as many heavyweights. So if I could have added another stone and a half of pure lean muscle and strength, I think it would have been a formidable force. But at the time, I didn't know much about it. I didn't know all I knew how to put weight on was to eat. But then eating the wrong shit, you just make you look like shit as well.
What did you feel better doing? Not cutting any weight, eating on the day of the weigh-in, and boxing naturally bigger men, or cutting the weight, maybe feeling a bit sluggish and struggling with the weight, and then boxing guys that aren't physically as big as you? What naturally as big as you? What did you find easier?
Um, it's a mad one. It's a good question, actually. Not many people have ever asked me that. So, a good question. I think what I found was when I was cruiserweight. Obviously, I was a smaller man. I was fighting a lot but bigger boys, but I had more strength than them. I hit harder than them, but my speed really stood out against them.
Yeah,
I really found it easy. So when I went down to light heavyweight, I didn't really struggle that much. I'd done it properly, and I wouldn't say I'd done it easy, but I'd done it easy enough. And I'm still stronger. I still punched hard, but the speed leveled out.
yeah, yeah,
That was the one thing I found, that these light heavyweights were fast, just as fast as me, if not faster.
yeah.
But when I was at cruiserweight, I was by far faster than anyone.
That's what I always think. Like, some of the fighters I train, I always say to them, like, you can go down and be big at the weight, but it's the big speed factor. Like when I sparred yourself, Tony Bellew, because I like overweight and people don't think I'm very fast. And my punches aren't the fastest, but my reflexes were pretty good. The likes of yourself, Tony Bellew, I much more struggled with yourself, Tony, and other cruiserweights, good cruiserweights, because they was faster. Like the speed is the worst thing to try and negate boxing, I think.
100%. My best sparring, when I won in Joe, stuff like that, was sparring the lighter boys. When I was with Gary, I used to spar the welters, the light middles, the middles, and I still keep a high end work rate. But obviously, I'd have to take the power out.
Yeah,
But I'd always find them, and I never really talk about sparring and who I dropped and stuff like that. Uh, but it was one kid who's in Gary, and I only say it because he caused me so much trouble. One of the best kids I've ever seen, Alex Hughes. I think you
yeah,
met him down there. Now,
yeah,
Alex is one of the most naturally talented boys I've ever seen. So I was in doing a Shark Tank, and you had Liam Williams, you had Alex Hughes, you had Lewis Reese, and someone else. I can't remember who it was. And they'd do minute, and I'd stay in the ring for 45 minutes, no break. So when they come in, I'm all right. I can box with them. I'm handling myself. But every time Alex got in, he caused me a nightmare. He caused me an absolute nightmare because he was so slick. So the
Yeah.
third time round, I remember timing Alex, and I thought, I'll have you know. So as he come around the corner, I hit him with the left up the body. One a heavy one, he was all light, and he's a super middleweight at the time. So I hit him with the left up the body, he hit the deck, and I said, sit down, you little fucker. So, like I said, I'll only tell that story about Alec because he was that good. I had to do it. I was obviously weight and levels above him at the time. I
Yeah.
had to do it to stop causing me trouble. But he was brilliant. But I found sparring the lighter boys much harder than sparring the big boys.
So a few more things to just to try and go over. So on your record, you had your defeats were stoppage defeats. Do you put that down to the fact that he was so aggressive and walking onto things, or at times punching too much? Or would you say that you didn't take the best shot, or would you say that you did take a decent shot, but he was just ultra aggressive and boxed at a high level?
It was the aggressiveness, mate. You know, it's like you look at the first right hand I took against Hay in the first fight. You know,
Mm.
he hit me flush in the chin. Adam Bufem even said that's the best right hand he've ever thrown. He said he was just blinked at it. But it was like it was always a case of me fighting boys a couple of weights above me. Oval McKenzie, for example, he's supposed to be one of the biggest hitters, light heavyweight. Because he was the same size as me, it didn't bother me.
Yeah,
I didn't think he hit that hard. When you were fighting boys like Wayne Braithwaite flushed me on the chin a few times, but he wasn't that much heavier than me. I think he was about 13-11. I
yeah,
was 13-7. So, but it was, for me, I think it was the way I used to fight. I always went looking for the knockout. And I think that, you know, going up against boys stone and a half heavier than you on fight night as well, you know, it's a silly thing to do. But that's what made me. That's what I think. That's why people love me because I always wore my heart on my sleeve. I couldn't, I couldn't win on points, or I didn't like to win on points. I think everyone comments that Wayne Braithwaite is my best win, boxing win. I can't stand the fight
yeah,
because there was no action. The only part I like at the fight is in the third round when we were having a little trade off, and John Rowland said, two biggest punches in world boxing going toe for toe. That's
yeah.
the only part of the fight I actually like.
So
But
as a coach, when your fighters are in there and they're boxing and behind a jab and everything's going easy, is your mindset the same? Are you wanting them to be more exciting, or is it completely different?
no, no, it's I got different boys. I'm actually different with the pros than I am with the amateurs.
Yeah,
Because the pros got the amateurs obviously got 3 rounds, the pros got 10, 12, whatever. So I'm a little bit more not defensively minded, but I want them to relax a bit more. I want them to watch what they do, and I want them to pick shots more. And I'm like that with the amateurs, but because some of them only got 3 2-minute rounds, it's pretty much a sprint. So most of my boys are aggressive. I'll say that most of my boys are aggressive. They all take the opportunity if they see it. But I have got a lot of boys who like to win on the back foot, and I never change that.
no. Two more things I just wanted to touch on. Number one, you boxed Mark Hobson twice, who I know was a very, very good fighter, Mark Hobson.
Yeah.
So the first time, um, it went the rounds. The second time, he shot him in the first round. So that's the only fight I could see where you boxed him twice and a completely different result. So what differences did you make in that fight?
Mark Hobson.
So you boxed Mark Hobson twice, two totally different results. I'm just interested what differences you make in the two fights to make it such a different fight.
Well, at the time before Mark Hobson, I knew he was a good fighter. I knew he was strong, but I just thought I was a lot better. I would bleed, not so much bleed my own life. I still trained hard. I still put the work in. But that was the first fight that taught me about weight cutting. I remember going to the weigh-in, and I hand long jumped from 13 stone 8 up to 14 4. Used to be two different classes. And I remember my brother phoning me at the weigh-in. He said, what do you think? I said, I looked at him. I said, I'll rip him in half. I
Yeah.
said, he's tiny. I said, I'll rip the fucking in half. He got in the ring on fight night. He was massive.
Okay.
So I think I underestimated him a little bit that night. And when I look at the fight, if I didn't score that knockdown, it's a draw or win for Hobson.
Yeah.
I got that knockdown, and I showed I can rough it out, and he hit hard as well. Mark's one of the hardest punches I faced. He was a strong boy. But a second time I was with Enzo Calzaghe. That was my first. I think it was my second fight with Enzo. I just had a totally different mindset. I had a totally different outlook on it, and I knew what would happen. I told everyone on the day. I said within 2 rounds that fight's over, and I actually said it would be a double jab right hand, which I neglected in the first fight. So I was more, like I said, it's giving him a discredit by saying I took him lightly. I didn't realize how good he was.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we say that. So I went in there expecting to blow him away. It didn't happen, and I had to grit it out.
So last of all, you've already told me that Joe Calzaghe was the best you ever shared a ring with. As a kid, I have to be honest, David Haye was like a superhero of mine. Was David Haye the best you boxed? And if not, who was?
Right. Now, this is a thing. I don't know if you know or know. When I wouldn't use this as an excuse. And if I'd have fought him on a different night, I'm not saying I would have won, because I think he was that good.
Yeah.
But I caught gastroenteritis a week before the fight. If you watch me, the week before I weighed 14 stone 4, highest I've ever weighed after sparring. On fight night, I weighed in with a pair of trousers on, 2 phones in my pocket, Frank Warren's wallet, so that's about £2. And I weighed about 13.10. On fight night, I weighed 13.6. So I'm up against a guy now who's about 15.2, 15.3. And if you remember, I run to the ring.
Yeah.
And people always ask me, why did you run the ring? I was just trying to wake myself up. I didn't know. It was the first time ever in my life I thought I was going to lose. And not because he was better than me or I was scared of him. Just I knew things weren't right. So for me to say, I would actually say he would have been the best. But I can't actually say it because I was nowhere near my best.
Yeah.
So the best I would say would have been Wayne Braithwaite.
Yeah.
Because he hit from all angles. So it's and like I said, with the Haye situation, if I'd have boxed him on a different night, I'm not even saying I would have beat him because I think he was that good. But he have actually said himself, on any other night, maybe Enzo would have won. He said, but that is the best he's ever been at any fight in his career. So I've lost to the better man on the night, but I can't say I lost to the better man, if you know what I mean. But he was good.
Well, that was all the questions I had, but I'm very grateful for your time, and it's been very interesting. I learned a few different things there. I'm not going to take up the Enzo Calzaghe training methods because I think all my boxers would leave me.
Not many can stick with that.
So did you all just do everything he said and that was it?
Yeah, no one questioned him. Do this, do that. He was very overpowering. He was, and like I said, it didn't work for everyone, but it seemed to work for me. I liked it, and like you said, you'd get to the gym at 9 o'clock. You'd be finished by 12. You'd be recovered. Then you'd have all that time to recover till the next day.
Yeah.
So it works out a balance. So whereas you're training hard for 2-3 hours in one go, you're having all that time recovery as well for the next day. But it was hard work.
So how do you work your sessions with your fight? Is it twice a day? Is it a run then a boxing session?
Well, with the pros twice a day.
Yeah.
I try to be in with them once a day at least, and I set them plans out with the amateurs. They've got to make their runs themselves. They do run in the night instead of skipping. So I've got so many in the gym. I think I've got about 42 people in the gym at one time. Yeah. I got a show September the 6th, my amateur show with a non-profit organisation. I put a show on. I got 17 fights on. Every single boy's from my gym. And I got 9 seniors on as well. So, that's unheard of for an amateur show. So my gym's just packed.
Do you enjoy the coaching as much as the fighting, or?
Mate, I've always coached. I've always coached from a young age. I remember beating Marcelo Dominguez in a Millennium Stadium on a Saturday night. On a Tuesday in a Labour club, I'm cornering Mano Lee in a junior championships.
Yeah.
I should have gone I should have gone for the Fury Usyk fight. I should have been ringside to Saudi. I had my tickets, but I was cornering a 10-year-old in the national championship finals, and I had others to take him instead. But no, it was my job. He changed with me, so it was my job to do it.
So, what is the ambitions with the coaching? Any ambitions to eventually be one of these huge name coaches and take over?
No, man. To be
Or,
honest, I just love changing lives.
yeah.
I just genuinely love changing lives. I've had a year. I've had a year pro coaching. I've been amateur coaching for years, but I've had a year pro coaching. I've taken two boys which weren't fancied at anything. I took them both the national titles. So I've done well. I've done well in a year. Like so, I've had two. Like I said, I had two boys winning the Welsh. Both of them were massive underdogs. Both of them didn't get given a chance. I'd like to think my tactics and my training methods helped. And as see what comes. I got plenty of knowledge. But what I will say is, if I'm training someone, I will give them 100%. I won't let them. I won't let them do their own thing. When you come to my gym, you're never just stuck on a bag doing something. It's always some sort of plan you're doing on the night as well.
Well, Enzo, I really appreciate your time. I really enjoyed that.
Welcome, Dave. Thank you very much.